Well, hello guys, and welcome back to E3 2018. I know this channel has done less and less of covering gameplay, right? It's more focused now on cartoons, animation, whatever you want to call it. But this channel has been gameplay for over half of its life. I did Let's Plays for over 4 years, I think. And I know, I mostly have relegated the stuff to the second channel, the streaming channel, which, yeah, go check that out. Go check out my predictions. It was a recent Splatin' Chat. But, I still enjoy doing E3 coverage. It's still a lot of fun, and I want to preserve it as much as possible. It's my one gaming thing of the year, besides for the, double-edged sword episodes. But yeah, EA, it's funny, this is their third year of doing the EA Play, and this is my third year covering E3. It's, that's neat. That's something I like. It's not, it doesn't mean anything, but, EA, I have no hope. I don't care about EA. They, the loot boxes were the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I kind of said that I'm boycotting EA, and that's kind of true. I don't really play any of their games, but I still like their indie stuff, and we'll get to their indie stuff in this video. But that's how they work. This year, the conference I can say is best described as, like, if I had to sum it up in a sentence, it would be, let's look more human and do some damage control. That, I think, sums it up perfectly, because they have a new host. She's a YouTuber, Andre Renee? I think that's it. And, you know, she was fine. She was more natural. She was nice. And it's part of that, hey, let's not make EA this nebulous, evil gaming company like they've always seemed. I mean, they're infamous for being rated the worst company in America for years. I don't get it, especially when companies like Comcast and Time Warner exist. But they're pretty bad. So their whole thing is, hey, let's be more human. And honestly, she was a nice way to do it. She was the, hey, let's look more human and not like a nebulous corporation. She was their big factor, and yeah, she did fine. Honestly. They started off with showing Battlefield 5. Really? I am more interested in Battlefield than I am Call of Duty. I've said this before. I do think Battlefield looks better. And there are some things I liked. The no premium pass. Yes, okay. The more we reach towards the, games being all interconnected, the less microtransaction, loot box, extravaganza monstrosity, the better. But, yeah, and they had a trailer, but we didn't really get much gameplay. They talked about destruction physics, and, there's the possibility of maybe even being able to build stuff. Okay, that has potential. But, yeah, and this shows one of the main things is they showed a logo, and then they brought out the developers, because one of the big themes this year with EA, and I expect to see this with other companies as well as the big thing, look less like an evil nebulous corporation, because EA really fucked up a lot of things for a lot of studios, is, they brought out the developers. There was a big focus on the developers, and sometimes that can be charming. We'll get into Sea of Solitude in a little bit, where I actually really liked that. But I see where they're going for. They did confirm that they are going to do a Battle Royale mode. They said, like, we know people have been asking for it, and yes, we will have a Battle Royale mode. Nobody was asking for it. Because we're going to see a lot of Battle Royale modes this E3. I can guarantee it. But here's the problem. People already have their Battle Royale modes. Fortnite is free, anyone can play it, and because of that, it's probably the biggest game in gaming right now. Which, oh god, we'll talk about that in Nintendo, but the backlash, oh my god, people are so annoying. But this is what happens when you have the biggest game in the world. But people already have Fortnite. They don't need Battlefield to do it because Fortnite already does it fine. This is the problem with gamers they may say they want it, but they don't know what they want. That's the big thing here. Because, no, we already have... I like PUBG. I'm going to be honest. In the battle between Fortnite and PUBG, I like PUBG more. But, yeah, no, People like Fortnite, people like PUBG. They don't need Battlefield to do it unless they're going to throw on some interesting gimmick, which I don't see. Plus, there's freaking Paladins has a battle royale mode. H1Z1, freaking Minecraft. They already exist. Next up, FIFA 19. It's another FIFA game. I don't like EA Sports games because this is what I'm talking about. They usually are microtransaction, loot box filled messes. NBA 2K, what was it, 18 was the last one? Is one of the... Oh my god, that game had so many microtransactions. It was a mess. And I'm not... Yeah, okay, I can see how people be into it. They're doing a big Champions League thing. Okay, they had the people out, and you could see where they're coming from, right? The more human aspect, the way the guy talked about the Champions League trophy, you get where they're coming from. This is all in their attempt to be more human, look less evil, like, because that's how EA comes across, and they do not help themselves. They're doing a free trial for FIFA, where the entire game is free for presumably the weekend. Okay, I like the idea of free trials. Even if it's not my cup of tea and I'm not going to play it, I do think it's an interesting thing to do. I like the idea inherently. And then, of course, there's going to be a free update for FIFA 18, the one currently out, with the World Cup, because the World Cup starts in 5 days. The World Cup is the only time I care about football, so yeah, all of my teams didn't make it this year, but I'll probably watch some of it here and there. I'll keep kind of track of it, like I did 4 years ago. Let's see. Next up, EA. So they talked about they had on what's his name? Andrew Wilson, the CEO, and everything. So I talked Andre Rene was human. He's damage control. Every time he came out, it felt like he was doing damage control. But his first thing is he talks about streaming, which there was a thing that came out from Ubisoft a few days ago, how they believe streaming is the future of gaming. How in the next few years, it'll be the last generation of consoles, right? The PS5, the Switch, and whatever Xbox pulls out. Even though I have different ideas for Xbox, and we'll talk about that at tomorrow's show. They say that subscription and things like cloud-based gaming is the future of gaming. I don't like cloud-based gaming. I think they're wrong. Well, the big corporations, whenever they do predictions like this, they're almost always wrong. Or even if they say what's right, they're still full of shit. I don't think cloud-based gaming is the future of gaming. For as much as I like digital gaming, I still buy almost all my games physical, because I'm rooted in that. That's just something that's become part of me. And in some ways, I do like to get rid of it. I would like to get rid of it, but cloud gaming I feel like it takes too much away. It's pushing digital gaming to its extreme, and I don't like it. I know some people will, but not my style. I don't care for it. And then they talked about Origin Access Premier, which is, I know they've already had Origin Access, which is like $5 a month. Okay. And then this new one, it's $100 per year or $15 a month, and it gives you access to all of EA's previous library and all of its up-and-coming games like Anthem, FIFA, Battlefield 5. Okay, fine. This is something we're actually seeing more and more of. Which also, I know Microsoft has their Game Pass, which I like the idea. There is definitely a market for this. This is the cloud service I can get behind. Because while you don't technically own the game, it goes around it. It's kind of like the Movie Pass, right? I like the idea of the Movie Pass, where instead of physically owning it, right, you're paying subscription service. It's the Netflix model. I really hope Nintendo learns from this Origin Access or the Microsoft Game Pass and does a Netflix for their NES games. I'm on board with that. I know some people like to own them, and make that an option, right? There's a balance between the two. But for a subset of gamers, I think this is a good idea, having a Game Pass like this. And $100, I think that's the same price as, that's actually less than Amazon Prime. So, yeah, I can see it. let's go to Respawn, actually. So they say Respawn is working on a Star Wars game, which is interesting how they did it, because they didn't have anything to show. They didn't show any gameplay. She went up to the guy who's just sitting in the audience, Vince Zampella, and he was like, oh yeah, we're working on a Star Wars game. It's called Jedi Fallen Order. They didn't have any gameplay, and this is that more human aspect of it. But I felt like maybe they were supposed to show something, because the show was 80 minutes. Usually these shows like to be round numbers, 30, 60, 90, 3 freaking hours like Microsoft and Bethesda's going to be tomorrow. Oh my god, they're so long. So long. And, that's what this felt like. They didn't have anything, but, Respawn, so, a few years ago, EA killed off Visceral. I feel like they killed off a studio just last year. Don't remember which one. But EA's going to kill off... After Anthem, I can almost guarantee EA is going to kill off BioWare. And then they're coming for Respawn next. Give it 10 years, EA is going to kill off Respawn. Because that's how EA works. They bought up Respawn last year. That just marks their death. It's only an inevitability. That's how this works. So, hey, maybe Titanfall, I really enjoyed Titanfall, even though I didn't play it as much as I should have. Titanfall 2 had a great single player. So, yeah, Respawn can do some good stuff. Maybe this will be good. Okay, sure. Battlefront 2. So, they started off saying, yeah, no, they said, oh, we didn't get this one not quite right. Basically, they admitted they fucked it up. They did. I have heard it has gotten somewhat better. They're adding a Solo, which I still have yet to see that movie. Oh my god, I know it's failing at the box office, and I need to see it. I would say this weekend, but I'm busy with E3 all this weekend. So yeah. But they're talking about a multiplayer sandbox, doing stuff based on the Clone Wars. Based on presumably the second and third movie? I thought they were talking about, because the Clone War, it was Attack of the Clones was the second movie. But the Clone Wars was the TV show. So I was thinking, oh, that would be cool if they did stuff based on the TV show. But they're not. They're doing stuff based on the second and third movie, which, I mean, yeah, the original Battlefront 2 on PS2 and other systems did have General Grievous and Obi-Wan in it, so I'm not against it, but I still think they've screwed the pooch with that game. They cannot salvage it. It was a big fuck up. I would say live and let learn, but it's EA. They're not gonna learn. If you enjoy it though, good for you. I'm glad they didn't do microtransactions, even though from what I can tell, they added in cosmetics, and that may or may not be paid DLC. I don't know. Again, haven't played it. Next up, they went into indie games, which they started off with Unraveled 2. I didn't play the first Unraveled. I remember being interested in it, but it didn't come out when but I don't remember it ever coming out. I just remember thinking it looks cool. This one, it reminded me it's a co-op. That's their big gimmick. It reminded me of Yarn Yoshi, actually. If you played Yoshi's Woolly World on the Wii U or 3DS, it kind of had a co-op function that kind of reminds me of this. It does look more interesting. I really did like the gameplay. It's a platformer, sure. I'm on board for it. It looks fine. The other thing it reminded me of was A Way Out and Brothers, which is, they actually talked about A Way Out. It broke 2 million copies, which is good. And I love how they mentioned the Game Awards. That was the best moment in the Game Awards. So it's cool to see it. But yeah, Unravel 2 looks good. I do think it has potential. They showed actual gameplay, because that was the problem with EA's conference. There was almost no game. I felt like there was no gameplay. This was one of the few exceptions where it's like, yeah, we're going to show some gameplay of it. Because there was a lot of, if you paid attention, there was a lot of video and still image looping. They'd show, the Star Wars Battlefront, they show the same, 5 scenes, 10 times while the guy was talking. That was one of EA, it was weird. That's just how EA did it. Anthem, oh my god, because they did a Q&A and we'll get to that. But it felt like it was the same, 10 things, filtering over and over again. They kept showing concept art, just filtering over and over again. But for Unraveled, they actually showed gameplay. Next up, they had Sea of Solitude, SOS. Okay, I like this. So, first off, they have the developer come out. And you know, she's clearly out of her element. She's nervous to come up and do it. But that's what made this endearing. Like I said, a big thing is, hey, a lot of people make the joke that, oh, EA has an indie game as the token, we're not an evil game company game. Look, we can support small developers. And, well, that's true. It does work. I do inherently like this. I liked how she went up. She was clearly nervous. She had the jitters. But yet she pushed through. She talked about how this game is art. What this game means to her. What it means about loneliness. And it worked. I bought it. This is, when I say I'm boycotting EA, that is true. But it's a game like this in Unravel where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not entirely boycotting EA. Because I like the idea of their indie games. I like the idea of A Way Out, even if it was a train wreck. I liked Fee, even if it had problems. Right? They're doing these things that I do like. Oh, and as part of Unravel 2, I forgot to talk about it. It dropped right now. This is a thing, I don't... What console did this? I like to always attribute that, oh, we're dropping it right now to Nintendo. But there was one company... I don't remember, where they're like, maybe it was Xbox with the Xbox 360 redesign. We're like, oh, we have an Xbox 360 redesign, and it's available in stores right now. I also think of the Sega Saturn, where they were like, oh, the release date, we're pushing it up. It's coming out in just like a few months. It's like coming out in 2 months. And of course, that killed Sega because they didn't tell anyone about it. But I like the idea of dropping stuff right now. That's what I'm expecting to happen with Fortnite at Nintendo's conference. They're going to announce it, and it's going to be available right after the show. That would not surprise me at all. But yeah, Sea of Solitude, I love the art style. I think it looks really good. It has a lot of potential. It kind of gave me a Silent Hill vibe, weirdly enough. Silent Hill 2. But I think that could work. It doesn't look like a horror game, but it's going for something, it has potential. That's all I'm saying. I don't think it's going to screw this one up. NBA 2K, or NBA Live 19, who cares? Who cares? If you're into it, yeah, but NBA 2K18 was a microtransaction-filled mess. Ugh. Then they showed Madden 18, Madden 19. They have a big focus on esports? That was a token. That's the token thing in E3. There's always mention of esports. Okay, I did. They talked about though how Madden is coming to PC. Madden 19, good. The more accessibility, the better. I'm always down for that. Does EA do crossplay? Maybe that's something they should look into. That may be fun. I don't like the games, but I feel like the more the better. Next up, Command and Conquer. So they just started off, they described how the game worked, and then they brought out two YouTubers. I recognize Nick at Night. He did Clash Royale, which I think is fitting because this game reminds me most of Clash Royale, where you go up, you collect gems, and you build tanks, and your goal is to take positions, to fire rockets. First to fire 2 rockets wins. It's a simple mobile game, but they spent like 10 minutes on it. I remember, what was it? Bethesda's conference, I want to say last year, maybe 2 years ago, where they spent like 20 minutes on Dishonored 2. That's what this reminded me of. It went on way longer than it needed to. And yeah, it's a simple mobile game. It is also available now if you're an Android user. It's the pre-alpha. And then, for some reason, they didn't say it was Command and Conquer. They waited until the very end. But as I was watching it, I saw people in the chat who were like, oh, those are the crystals from Command and Conquer. Okay. Yeah, it's another Clash Royale-style mobile game. It's probably going to have microtransactions, which, I mean, it makes sense for EA to be doing more mobile games. I mean, I know they have, like, the Star Wars ones, but, yeah. I don't know. I've never played Command and Conquer. Again, we saw gameplay, but They went back to the CEO, and he talked about how, oh, I work with the most creative people on the planet. We strive to be better. Our games are about player choice. Yep, that's all damage control. It really is. Everything he said was damage control. But that's what they have to do. That's what EA has to do. They have to be more human, right? They have to do this. I'm not buying it. I don't trust EA. Yeah, no. They talked about power of community, how, oh, we can make better games. They talked about, and it is interesting, because he is right. The community can be powerful. But as Battlefront 2 showed, it can be powerful against them. Which, yeah. And then they ended off with Anthem. We started off with a trailer, which it's an in-game trailer, but these are deceptive as hell. We've known this for years. I mean, I always think of the infamous one is Watch Dogs, but no, I don't trust this. What I wanted to see more of was gameplay. And again, like I said earlier, they just kept looping video and footage, and I have no reason to... The looping, when we actually did get some gameplay at the very end, and it looks okay. Because what they did was they brought out 3 of the developers, and they basically did a Q&A. Again, feeling more human, focusing on the developer side of things. Okay, again, damage control. That's the theme. Damage control. Because EA screwed the pooch. But the way they talked about the game, I feel like we still know nothing about it. Like, they talked about the story, and there's like, oh, the Anthem wall, and the Divergent, and the Covenant, and all that shit. I know that's not what they said. It's like there's no story, because everything they said about the game was vague. I feel like they're focusing more on gameplay, which is a nice way to do it. And just but then they also said, oh, the single player is so important. Oh, it mixes with multiplayer. I don't trust it. It could be good. The way I described it, I said this on Twitter, is it looks as if Bungie made a Xenoblade Chronicles game. Because the way they talked about, oh, it's a world with the abandoned gods. I said last year it reminded me of Xenoblade Chronicles X. But the way they talked about the story reminded me of the first Xenoblade Chronicles, right? Shulk and all that stuff. Monado. God, I'm forgetting the names of the giants. That's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of Xenoblade Chronicles X, and Destiny all mixed together. It looks like Bungie could have made this game. It does give off Destiny vibes. The way they talk about, oh, a massive multiplayer world where you can get up and play with your friends. That kind of reminds me of what Destiny was building up to do. It could be fun. The gameplay doesn't look too bad, in my opinion. It does look like it has potential. But I don't trust EA, and BioWare is on their way out. Most of the original creative staff that started BioWare has left the company, and I do believe that after that Mass Effect Andromeda failed, Anthem will, if it does well, okay, but I still think EA is going to kill off BioWare within the next, 5 years. Maybe even 3, honestly, because that's just how EA works. We got a release date, February 22nd, 2019, same day as Crackdown 3, if I'm correct. Everything's got Red Dead Redemption. I know everything chickened out of a fall release because of Red Dead Redemption, but February is actually looking to be a pretty packed month. That's okay. Because I know January is a dead month usually, but yeah. They showed off 4 classes. It looks fine. Fine. They all played a little differently. They got some gameplay, right? They showed so much looping. There was barely any gameplay. And I mean, they have a bunch of demos, because EA technically isn't E3. It's its own thing. And we will probably get some gameplay out here and there, but it's not gonna... They focused more on developers than gameplay, and they focused more on pre-rendered cutscene trailers and in-engine cutscenes than they did on actual gameplay, which I feel like was a mistake. But it just, I totally can see it as, and then I can see the game being bogged down with the standard AAA bullshit. I know that it has a normal edition and a deluxe edition, even though we don't know what's the difference. There's going to probably be some sort of microtransaction, because that's the joy-killing culture of AAA. And yeah, that's where it ended off. She thanked the developers at the end. Again, human. That's the theme. And I'm expecting that to show up in a lot of E3. Human developers. Because I remember last year it was all about gameplay, very little human interaction. Let's just do gameplay. Which I do in theory like, but in execution it felt very dry. So I feel like we're going to get a mix this year, probably a lot of more focus on developers. And yeah. And then there was no Skate 4. I mean, there's still a few more days of E3. We may see it at a Microsoft or Sony show, but Skate 3 is one of those... It's such a bad game, I can't help but love it. It's the room of video games. I enjoy it. Well, and plus I also enjoy the Tony Hawk games, so it's got some bias from me. And yeah, that's EA. It was meh. I like the 2 indie games, but everything else, Anthem does look to have good gameplay, but I'm not sure about the rest of it. Plus, it's EA. They're gonna fuck it up somehow. Who knows? I'm coming into E3 this year this is just day 1, and technically this is EA's thing. It's completely different. But I'm definitely going in this year a lot more cynical than I have been in previous years. Yeah, there are some things like Sony and Nintendo I'm looking forward to, but my hopes are not high this year, and this was not a great way to... EA is never a good way to start it off, but I know they do their whole EA Play. It's a different thing. It's a different event. That's how they like to license themselves. Okay, whatever, do your own thing, but I don't really care. It's EA... They'll fuck it up somehow.